All right, we are back. We're back. We're here. We're live.
Back in
I think
action.
it's working.
Well,
We're
I'll be
gonna
our guinea
show
pig. I'll go
that.
test.
What's that?
I'll be our guinea
Wait.
pig. I'll go test.
Okay.
Yeah.
Guinea pig Wayne.
Sure. All right. Well, we got some unbans today. We're starting this over. We had some technical difficulties, but I think we got it figured out. Hopefully, we got it figured out. Evan, FreedomWaffle is here joining us. What do you think?
What up?
We got the blue card that everybody was clamoring for. We got Sway of Stars.
No. We got you could have left it at the first
part I
page.
held up.
Yeah, we got gifts on gift. We got a gift. We got a gift.
We got a gift. It was given to us, and it was ungiven.
It was given to Blue Farm, is what it was.
Yeah, it was given to Blue Farm, and you said Raul might also run that if there's
Yes,
somebody playing.
Raul will absolutely run it. Raul's kind of good. I think Raul's underrated, but top of the meta, Blue Farm is the only thing that it's going to affect. So
Yeah.
Do you think that any of the Esper pile decks will run it for Thoracle, Snapcaster Mage, Reanimate, and Decon as a pile?
Will or should? Because the answer is yes. Should they? No.
That's kind of what I think. I think it's a little messy.
Yeah. That's my opinion.
I mean, but is there maybe like a 4-card pile that we're not seeing right now? Like in the future, that people are gonna be like.
That's what I'm curious about. Yeah.
People are gonna big brain it.
I mean, I think the answer is still yes, but like, is it going to be better than people were forcing intuition into tons of decks.
Right.
It's just that like, for efficiency's sake, it needs to be like cheap, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're just trying to make it too much mana, it's not worth it, right? Like, and that's
yeah.
the thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think
because it's 4 mana opposed to intuition that's only 3. So
yeah, and like the Dimir pile is like super easily interruptible. You're gonna have to do like 4 mana, and then you're gonna have to have double blue, and then triple blue, a colorless, and a black.
Yeah.
To win after you spend 4 mana. That's a lot, right? So it's like being able to cast just like one spell after like a Savine's and then you're good to go is why the intuition pile is so good, right? You're able to just get Breach back into play, you get LED, you're good. And then like there's tons of value piles, but I think the power of this card is it's a 1-card win con, and when it's not winning, it gets you value, like a Rhystic Study, a Mystic Moor, a Ranger Captain, whatever, something like that.
Yeah. And people were like using intuition as backup, like, oh, I'm gonna get 3 counter spells so you can stop somebody from winning, kind of thing,
Right. Now you get 2 counter spells for the price of 1 card, right?
Or
so that's pretty good.
I'll put a counter spell and then a card that I want, and then I'll put a counter spell and like 3 cards that I want, and then I'm gonna stop them from winning. I'll force a will and then 3 cards that I want, or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? Because you get 2 cards, which is a lot better than getting only 1 card, right?
No, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the classic. If you're Blue Farm and there's someone's putting a win on the stack and you're the only one with an answer and your answer is intuition, you're like, here's a force of will, and also I'm gonna put Savine's and Breach in my yard.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like most players, at least on like the higher level of things, are going to see that and be like, oh, but don't get this, or else this isn't. They have that political conversation that's more or less mitigated by like, don't be a dick about it.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Speaking of, don't be a dick.
Let's see where this goes.
Yeah, where are you going?
We got braids.
Segue of the century.
We got braids.
Oh, that's where you're going. Yeah.
Well, I was like,
Fair enough.
I really, really surprised that we saw this because of the casual implications of this card. I think is a dirty. It's like a Turgid kind of level of salt for the casual players. It's really kind of funny that they said, oh yeah, no, this is cool. We're gonna allow you to have this, but like Raphaelos and some of these other things, no, you can't have this, but you can have a braids on turn 1. That's cool. Is there?
Well, there's no Jewel Lotus, so it is harder to do that now than it used to be. But yes, or Mana Crypt, right? But
right.
I agree.
Is there a cEDH deck that's maybe, hey, we're gonna we're gonna do super stacksy like braids kind of thing. I mean, I don't know.
Scotty, there's always a cEDH deck. Is it a good cEDH deck? Is the real question.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean, Crick is probably the deck that can probably get this out the fastest, and Crick doesn't give a damn about what's on other people's boards most of the time. I have a friend.
Well, unless it's targeted removal because it's a stacks piece, which
Right.
Fair.
But I feel this is this is like, oh, I'm gonna run braids, and braids is my commander, and I'm hoping to like lock down the table turn 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Grand Arbiter Augustine IV type game plan.
Yeah. We do have a mono black cEDH player in our meta that runs Balthor. That it might see in there, maybe, but I don't know. I'll have to ask her about it.
Yeah, she played in Fishbowl.
Yeah,
I played against her. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, she wasn't Fishbowl.
For sure. Right. I mean, right? It had to be because.
Yeah. Shout out Mia. Yeah.
No, she was super cool. Everyone underestimated her because it was Balthor, and then she almost cooked us. Like it was so close. It was so close.
Yeah. I've seen that deck in like high power pods, and it's the like necrotic ooze kind of thing where you're just dumping a whole bunch of things into your graveyard, and you're trying to reanimate your like combo black pieces, and it's a good deck. I mean, I saw it high power. What's that?
Dread Return, etc.
Yeah, more just like they're gonna reanimate all the stuff that you need and do the Gray Merchant loops or whatever.
Yeah. You're playing Crick with the combo in the command zone, not the mana in the command zone.
Right. Which so I don't know, maybe some degenerate brewers out there decide they wanna bring a mono black braids build.
I think outside of cEDH, unbanning braids is really interesting because I think with the implementation of the bracket system, obviously they're really trying to set up tools for casual players and make the pregame conversation a lot more informed. And obviously braids can be a feels bad in a lot of games, especially for casual players. But what unbanning braids does is if you are planning to play braids and you're not playing cEDH, likely if you're playing braids, it forces that turn 0 conversation of, hey, I want to play braids in this game. It's going to force a lot of. I imagine the eventual impact of doing that will be it will see a decent amount of play in casual tables because it was unbanned and it's a topic of conversation. And then that will force a lot of these healthier, more communications on turn 0, and then players will realize, oh, no one enjoys playing against this. But the long-term impact is it will increase the health of the turn 0 conversation, I guess, is what I'm saying. Which I kind of wonder if I wonder if that was the intention of unbanning braids.
Yeah. I feel like it's like if you have it as your commander. You're like everybody knows what they're getting themselves into. It's not like, oh, I just threw it as a random card in my 99, or if you're like, oh, I'm playing Turgrid, and of course I'm gonna put braids in my Turgrid deck, or Toxrill, or one of these decks that's already kind of nasty and making you sacrifice creatures and things like that. Decks that are already playing Dictative Erebos and stuff like that. So. Yeah, I think, and it's so weird in the casual format. To me, it seems crazy because it's that card in the command zone. Where like Turgrid in the command zone, like it's like you're saying about Crick versus Balthor, where like Turgrid is the payoff for forcing your opponents to discard and sacrifice things, where Braids is the enabler, is the one that's making your opponent sacrifice and things. And so I think it's a lot nastier to have that Braids in the command zone. They use, I have access to that on conceivably turn 2. It's not insane, but pretty likely in a casual thing, turn 1 land, turn 2 Arcane Signet, turn 3 land Braids. Like that's not a crazy play pattern in a casual format.
Sure. But at that point, removals online, everyone's like all their 3 mana beast.
The
with it or
casuals are
whatever.
letting removals. I don't know.
Well, maybe they will now. Okay.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like it's so much. It's part of the like this. It's one of those like talking points kind of things. Oh, dies to removal, and it's like, oh, well, you should be running removal, but like okay, so I'm running 5 pieces of removal, but I mulliganed to just a decent hand that is going to play my commander and it's going to play my other things, but maybe that opening hand that I mulligan to doesn't have any of my 5 pieces of removal, even though I'm playing 5 pieces of removal, which is pretty healthy. What are you?
Yeah, it's not a very high chance to put it unless you're control deck. I'm actually almost curious. Evan, do you play a lot of casual?
No.
Yeah, there you go.
I used to. I mean, that's how I got into cEDH.
That's how we all got into this. Yeah, we were like, oh, this is fun, and then it's like, well, hey, why don't we just do better?
I think the other thing.
Why don't we win?
I think the other thing to consider with casual tables and braids is that regardless of like what your mulligan is or ends up being in casual, or how much interaction or removal you do or don't run, hypothetically, if your opening hand does not have anything to deal with braids in it, then if you're in casual, you don't have draw engines that are as efficient as what we play in high power tables or in cEDH, and you also don't have the concentration of tutors to get something to deal with braids. So if you're sitting down at your bracket 3 or bracket 2 table, whatever, and braids comes down early and you don't have something immediately, your likelihood of being able to draw into something to deal with it or get something to deal with it is way lower than the toolkit that we have in cEDH,
Yeah, well, I think
I'll say.
I'll just say real quick that because it's coming off the ban list, I think it immediately goes onto the Game Changers list.
Game Changer list, yes,
yeah,
that is
so
correct.
So
it is a game
limit. It's probably not going to be in bracket 2. You're thinking bracket 3 and above, but yeah.
Right. Well, and I think I get your point of like, you can't find the removal. You might not mull for it. But like, there's 3 players at the table that all want it gone. And I think the odds of someone having removal go like a lot higher, and people are going to be thinking about it early and they're not going to want to get rid of it. So like, or they're going to want to get rid of it. So I feel like it's probably going to be not the worst thing in the world. But I mean, again, I don't know. I play cEDH. Regardless, though, I do think. Like just one last point here is that I think that like it's going to be interesting to see that they are caring less about like just having these there's other not fun cards that are already unbanned and have been unbanned, right? That's always going to exist. That's okay. Yeah. And I think that this is maybe more of a common sense way to go about it is that like, yeah, you have to have those, like, we're not going to have a forced ban list to do it. We're going to have these game changers and these other guidelines to monitor that so that the ban list doesn't have to be inconsistent with power level and levels of fun. Because if they were just matching every other card like braids on the ban list would already look dramatically different. Or like Primeval Titan, right? Like, honestly, I'm kind of amazed that Primeval Titan didn't get unbanned, but whatever. I think it's in my opinion, it's a step in the right direction as far as like actually making a common sense ban list. And I think that's what like we're seeing with these right now. So that's my take.
Yeah, added some color to
I would
life here.
that.
Ooh, that's super saturated. That's
no more log footage.
Yeah, well,
just full raw.
I'm shooting on my Black Magic and it gives me like
I know
options of like super saturated or not saturated at all. It's really good. There you go. This is.
I don't know. I liked the full Black Magic raw.
Yeah,
I was down.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. I think, but maybe, what that kind of does is it like, talking about mulligans and things like that, maybe forcing the, maybe forcing people to be better players and mulligan better and build better decks and things like that, that like, I can't just, but I think it's one of those cards that like, do you want to lose your friends kind of cards? Like if you're just going to bring it to a casual table and you're like, oh, your homies and stuff like that, then you're like, okay, well now everybody's going to gang up on you. And that's what's going to happen is every game, because I play casual and, somebody busts out, a card that is like super overpowered. Someone plays Grand Arbiter or Toxeril or one of these kind of cards. And it's like, cool. All right, well, everyone's going to target you until you're dead or you're completely crippled. And then we'll have our fun casual game where we're making elves and goblins and angels and stuff like that,
Yeah. And that already existed, and so I think it's going to just regulate itself just fine.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because
The other thing is,
go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say the other thing is if you're, it feels bad to play against Braids because Braids is an oppressive card, but also if you are in the scenario you just described and you are the Braids player, it doesn't feel good to arrive at your casual play group and then have the other 3 players immediately target you down and take apart your game plan. So I think, the self-regulation will go both ways of, people won't want to play against Braids, but also I think if you try to bring Braids consistently, it won't be fun for you for long.
Yeah. And I mean,
Agreed.
Braids is also a symmetrical card, so you're having to sack things too, and obviously you've built your deck in order to make things that you can afford to sacrifice and stuff like that. Pooch. But yeah. So Panoptic Mirror, that was the other one I was thinking about. Like, is there cEDH potential in that, or is this pipe dreamy kind of magical Christmas land sort of thing? Like,
I feel like Urza is like the only deck that could possibly do something with Panoptic Mirror.
Yeah.
And I think Urza has more efficient things to do than that.
Mhm.
So I think the likelihood of us seeing it in cEDH is fairly low. However, if it were to see any cEDH play, Urza would be the deck, I would think.
Sure, Kai, but
yeah, well, Anthony, who runs the Teferi Chainveil deck, he already ran. He had like 5-6 extra turn spells already in the card.
Maybe
or
that's
like,
the deck actually.
What's the Simic guy that used to be a big deck?
Edric?
Yeah,
Edric.
Edric Spymaster, right? So people used to run a lot of like extra turn. So maybe
Or Yova also turns deck.
Paco and Halden, or any of these kind of decks that already run extra turn spells.
I think the real issue with it is like how much it costs. So like every time any new card comes out, I look at it and it's a big colorless thing. I look at it for a split second and go like, nope, still not gonna like. As I got excited, I was like, oh, colorless thing? Infinite mana means this is free. No, this is garbage.
Well, I think if there was a way to do it all at the same turn, it would be a lot more reasonable for cEDH. But you have to pass.
Yeah.
No matter what. Like, if there's no built-in way to do it same turn, you have infinite mana, it literally does nothing that turn. Nothing.
Oh, what about if we figure out a way to treat out the approach, the Sphinx, the second Sphinx, the blue one? There we go. Immediately get it? No,
what's the one Grixis? Obeka.
Obeka? It's
Obeka.
Still...
You get extra upkeeps.
Oh, that one.
Obeka. Something of something.
Yeah,
that
seems better than
I'm
Kinnan.
sure. Oh yeah.
I mean, Kinnan sucks. When is the last time Kinnan won a tournament? Really?
Oh
yeah,
my
I can't
God.
remember.
Yeah, I'm not terrified of that constantly. Well, but I mean, that's the cool thing about cEDH, right? Somebody can prove us wrong.
Yeah.
Well,
that's in the middle.
That card, Panoptic Mirror, will win games, but it's gonna be a D tier combo anyway, and that's okay. I think that like there's a big part of cEDH that is people dedicated to playing C, D, whatever tier combos, and that's cool, and that's awesome that there's more available. I don't think this is like, I think it's totally fine if this is how you want to win the game, as long as it's like you understand that it's not going to be the best thing to be doing.
Yeah, especially in tournaments with the turn situation and everything. Like, anything that doesn't win this turn, like you got time, pass, draw.
And now there's so many effects to play stuff at instant speed and to win on the stack.
Sure, absolutely.
Anything that just doesn't even have like, and that's like I've been watching Tim do stuff with Marnius, and it's so close to my Tivit list. I've been thinking like, okay, so I'm now building my Tivit list into Marnius, and going to give that a shot for like the next couple tournaments and see what that does after playing Tivit for so long, because I absolutely love Tivit, but the big deal with him is there's not a lot of ways to win on the stack. Like I've got Word Invention, then I can grab the Time Sieve, but even if I have the Time Sieve out, I can only steal a turn at the end of that turn, if somebody's winning is going to win that turn, there's not. I can stop them from winning, cast a silence or something like that, and then go to that turn, and then I snap up the extra turns and win that way. But
right.
Yeah.
You're basically
that's why Board Upon a Wind can be so much more powerful than Final Fortune for that reason, right?
Yeah.
Not always.
Yeah. So
yeah, Born Thorkel is basically your only ticket right there.
Yeah, for sure. And I wasn't running Born Upon a Wind, so that's really hard to do. So what was your feeling after the turn a tournament, Evan? Like did you feel like that there was a lot of winning on the stack? Were your victories winning on the stack wins? Was it, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's still a lot of it for sure. I do think that like one nice thing that we implemented with this tournament was a 30-minute cutoff after time where the game is instantly a draw, no matter what's on the stack, which is kind of cool. And the reason that that's, I think, helpful is not necessarily like, I think 2 games went to 30 minutes overtime the entire weekend, but people knew that they weren't going to be able to get away with waiting until the last second, except for a top 16, right? Untimed, whatever. Right. But wait till the last second in order to jam on top and have a huge stack war and win. And so for the most part, games actually, I think, ended more on turns than previously. But the threat of instant speed was still there. And I do think that like I wish I had, this weekend was a blur. I wish I had a better memory of everything that happened. I haven't actually gone through and tracked all my games yet, but I have some of them written down. But I do think there was a couple instant speed wins. I will say that I've been playing a lot of tournaments. They've consistently been important. Like I know the weekend before at SCG Con in Denver, I definitely had some instant speed wins. And yeah, they're a big part of the format. I think that Ristic Study, I know there's a debate about like Ristic Study, Mystic more like the draw engines versus the flash enablers. Which one is more of the issue? I don't think that the instant speed enablers are very good without drawing a ton of cards. So that's kind of my take on that. Like, I do think that like it's when you're already in these like draw engine battles that everybody's drawing a billion cards that's a huge effect. Otherwise, it's not that bad because you don't really like have the mana or the cards to cast that spell and then go off. And why would you if no one's drawing cards, right? You're not. Yeah,
especially like cards like High Fate Trickster and stuff like that. These are card slots that you're playing. You're not just spending mana. You're sacrificing a card to do something at instant speed, and we could just do something that wins or whatever. But that's interesting. What was your feeling as far as like new cards? I know you had mentioned the new the new green tutor.
Yeah, no, those new cards were actually so
Nature's Rhythm.
Good. Actually, Mistrise Village did not really come up at all. It did the weekend before a little bit, but I think that's overrated. And at first I was like, wow, this card's cracked. And then I thought about it more and I'm like, I do think that like for a while I've been thinking that like I have to test it, but I don't think it's that good. Like it's good, it's just not that good. The reason being, you have to understand that, in this perfect situation, it's going to be great, but there's going to be a lot of situations where it's going to come into play tapped. Not many decks can run it because of that. And the decks that want to run it are probably like, the main decks that we're thinking about are going to be like maybe some Izzet stuff, but like Kinnan and Rogthras at the top of the meta. TNKs are going to run it. And like, what spells are they trying to really resolve that are, the wannabe uncounterable? Well, Kinnan's going to be Basalt Monolith, right?
Right.
But the thing about Kinnan is anything you want to resolve almost can be beaten by removal in most situations, and you're tapping lower already to like be like, so like let's say I make my Basalt uncounterable and then they kill Kinnan. Well, now I spent 2 more pips trying to make my Basalt uncounterable and I can't recast Kinnan. Where, if I just didn't do that, like it would have been fine. Like I think the only game that I used a Mistrise Village in the Swiss, I made my Basalt uncounterable and the only interaction was a Swan Song. So it didn't matter. I didn't know that at the time. Right.
Yeah.
But Nature's Rhythm has been insane. That card's nuts. Voice of Victory is literally everywhere. Both of those cards are going to be like the biggest impact on cEDH for a long time. Yep, there it is. Yeah. Boom. That card is like that card just, it's not that it's like, it's better than the other options for the most of the time. But the reason that it's so impactful is that it's another one that goes in every deck and is a human. So your Cavernous Souls now goes triple silence. So that play pattern gets better. It's just more consistent. And, you know, also works with Tymna randomly really well. And a bunch of other random things. Like, why is it just perfect?
Yeah.
Also in Marnius, it gives a card draw.
Yeah.
My God, stop.
Yeah, every turn. It's
I got excited. I just got excited as another Grand Abolisher. My colors are like, all right, cool. And then but you know what? Still, the rich get richer. Blue Farm gets more stuff, and you're like, why?
Right?
Yeah.
Blue Farm is receiving gifts and gifts and gifts.
And gifts ungiven.
Yeah.
But
they were given.
I was gonna say, like, when I was first looking at Voice of Victory, you know, people were talking about how good it would be with Tymna, and I was kind of thinking to myself, I was like, okay, it's good with Tymna, but also, like, if you leave it out there, it can get cloned, and then you're like handing someone else the game, and I was like, man, that's really risky. But then, like, in a, you know, casual game of not in a tournament, I drew a hand that allowed me to do turn 1 Voice of Victory and turn 2 Tymna, and then just seeing that in action, I was like, whoa, this is like really strong to go to be if you're in seat 1 or 2 as Blue Farm, to, you know, all of a sudden be drawing 3 extra cards on turn 2, and just from playing your commander, and you already have a silence effect up for if you get into anything particularly juicy, is like, just like, this is very strong. More so than it is, you know, just enough. Like, yes, it's most powerful and most relevant to the meta because it is another one. It's a redundancy of an already powerful.
But it's still, it's
but better. Also, like, those other details are not irrelevant. I guess what I'm getting
absolutely.
And the one
Culling the Weak and then Diabolic Intent after your combat phase is going to win you some games sometimes.
Yeah.
For sure.
And just that it's 1 in a colorless for those 4 color decks.
Yeah, that's
color
important.
Decks, just like someone, because I know times in Tivit where you're just like, man, so do I fetch for this because it gets me 2 white for my Grand Abolisher, or do I get this because it gives me a black and a blue for the time save or whatever, you know, like having those little micro decisions, and having another one that's easier to cast that it doesn't shut off effects, but the redundancies on it's pretty good. Coalition Victory.
Even just no. I mean, like, somebody will try. Absolutely.
Someone will win with it.
Yeah. And it'll be a story, and it'll be like, great, you did it.
I mean, I think the thing with Coalition Victory for cEDH, if we're going to actually talk about it, it's not going to be relevant. But if we're like going to actually talk about it, the elements as a card, 1, obviously it's really expensive, so, you know, that's difficult. 2, anytime that you can meet the conditions for Coalition Victory, you probably can already win the game in a much easier way than casting Coalition Victory in cEDH. I think, and then, you know,
I'm gonna have all my land types and my commander's gonna be 5 colors and no cards in hand, and I top deck it. So,
But Curtis, Sisay's already collecting pips. You know, they're already worried about making sure all the pips are on the field. Like, they got this slam dunk in Sisay, right?
Yeah.
But and then the other one, if just, you know, obviously, again, this card's clearly not going to be played, is that it's sorcery speed. So
yeah.
You got a blood color.
But upon a win.
Yeah. He's on
blood color.
No one's gonna accept it.
Only 9 mana or whatever.
More than 9.
Yeah.
Well, but if you add 2 more on top of it, it can be uncounterable of the Mistrise Village.
Yeah.
So you know.
Oh, it's
There you go. Now you're thinking.
Right. I feel like with Mistrise Village, I feel like with like stuff like Kinnan, just the opportunity cost of playing it is really low. That it's
see
there.
That's what you'd think, and then you remember that Kinnan is running Emergent Zone, Gemstone Caverns, Ancient Tomb, Basic Island, Basic Forest, Ottawara, Beseiju, Sick into Stupor, Hydroelectric Specimen, Treasure Vault. Did I say Emergent Zone? I think I did. All of those cards, and you. I'm not running Cephalid because that's too many. So, but yeah, if you are, your ban is even worse, right? Or Homeward Path if you're running that. Yeah, you'd think so, but like, do you want to cut those cards? Are they better? Like, you know, the opportunity cost is not 0.
Right.
Yeah, in 2-color decks, you'd be surprised because there's a level of like, there are just such good utility lands that those kind of immediately become the slots on those things. And then, like, I'm running Arena of Glory because that feels pretty close to free, but even then sometimes it comes in taps, and Just
Yeah.
feels
I
bad.
found that
but-
Misread Village, even like mid game, late game, could come in tapped because like you just didn't draw a fetch or a forest or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and you got your spectator sitting, or
Yeah,
and then that's
There's
your
plenty of
land.
non-forest.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure,
Are you on
absolutely.
the surveil land? In
No.
Newfoundland?
Yeah. Oh,
No surveils in cEDH. Boo.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm
not on them. Every once in a while, I'll have the situation where I'll play like a fetch land that I don't need to fetch right away, and I'll fetch on an end step, and I'd be like, oh, that could have been.
And that's
surveil
pure
land.
upside.
Right.
Pure upside.
Pure upside. Yeah.
But
yeah.
even then, it's probably only a 50-50 that it's relevant because half the time you're keeping the card on top. But
yeah, I mean, unless you're a deck that actively wants stuff in your graveyard, like.
But
I
even
don't see.
then, it's like I think most of the time having mana available in a 3-turn cEDH game, you miss a mana for a turn, like that might lose you the game because you couldn't develop that turn, or it's the turn you're winning and now you have a tap land. Like the effect is it's when you're fetching it, it's always upside. But when it's in your hand, the amount of times it's going to lose you games is like a lot, I think.
Yeah.
Or it might make a keepable hand unkeepable during mulligans.
Sure.
which is a
Yeah.
big one.
Honestly, that's even the more important part. You're right. That's actually the most important part. And that's like the whole thing with all these mana bases. Misrise Village, the reason that it's not a 0 cost is that will kill your mulligans. Like, again, we could see a hand of 4 lands that don't do anything. Like, Ancient Tomb, Misrise, Treasure Vault, Emergence Zone, and any combination of those cards, and you cannot play the game. Like, that's... Also, we want to cast a Dork on turn 1 in Kinnan specifically. But Surveils are the same idea, right?
Yeah.
If we're casting a Dork on turn 2, what are we doing?
Right. So here's a question for you, Evan. I've in passing looked at your Kinnan list. So if you are not running Cephalid Coliseum, obviously you do not have the Cephalid Coliseum loop combo there. And everyone knows that Kinnan's main win line is usually Finale of Devastation. So what are your alternate lines if Finale becomes unavailable to you, or things if there's a situation where time in the round is called and you have to win at instant speed? What are your outs?
Yeah, well, first off, Cephalid doesn't even beat the One Ring anyway. So that could be like One Ring protection at time. You already can't win with that. So the win card is Fairy Mastermind. And so what you do is you just, here's how it goes. You assemble your infinite mana. You're going to have all access to everything in your deck because you'll have Thrasios and all your creatures, right? So you're going to assemble Hullbreaker Horror, Tidespout, which allows you to bounce every single permanent every player controls. Ideally, if they float mana, you could pass to the next phase so they have no mana, no permanents, period. That's not always possible and not always necessary. It's just a thing you can do. So if that's the case, once you've got to the next phase, now you have infinite mana, or you have to restart a loop, whatever, of every color. You could activate Fairy Mastermind to make everyone draw a card and continue doing that. You just do it one at a time until your deck is almost empty. And actually, one thing I like to do is I like to get a enchantment artifact endurance, which I'll copy it with Phyrexian Metamorph, and then copy it with Copy Artifact, and bounce the other 2 to my hand. I'll have flash speed, so I can do this whenever with Hi-Fi Trickster or whatever else, the E-Zone. And I will then have access to the ability to copy it with, I think, 6 different cards in the deck, something like that. So that means now, and I'll have a Wandering Archaic, right? So now I've been able to draw all my cards. They've got no mana, so every free counterspell they have, I can interact with my own counterspell, Hullbreaker Horror, bounce it to hand infinitely, whatever I need to do. But also, I can just copy Endurance, because the only relevant spell at this point is Endurance, because I just need to refill my graveyard. And if I could do that, they cannot stop the Fairy Mastermind triggers, right? As long as I can keep making sure I have cards in my deck, then they cannot interact with me.
Yeah, as long as you have more cards than they do. But,
Fair.
Right, and so I'll need to keep refilling my deck, and I just basically will copy Endurance over and over, and I could just respond as much as I want. And Wandering Archaic pretty much makes it impossible for them to interact anyway. So that's how you do it. Then you just draw them out forcibly, which beats the Wandering.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Nice. I didn't want to interrupt, but I do have to say I'm probably gonna head out here soon. But Evan, it was great to finally get to play with you, and this was cool.
You too. That was a blast. I'm glad we got 2 games.
Yeah, even Tavern. Those were some fun games overall.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna head out.
See you, man.
Have some fun out.
Thanks.
Or not too much fun, man. Yeah.
Thanks for joining. What was
I might have to start wrapping up in a sec here too, because I got a couple other things to do after this.
Just any thoughts that you had about your tournament as far as how the meta feels to you, decks that you saw that were unique and new, or comeback decks like, hey, I haven't seen that thing in a while, or
Yeah, there were definitely some interesting decks. There was 2 Jacob Hawkins in the tournament.
do
You know what that is?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Mono blue, omniscience.
Mono blue.
Yeah.
Turns, omniscience, whatever. Basically, like it turns into a way to just cast spells for free. It's a looter that eventually just like puts spells under or into exile that you can cast for free. So it goes like tons of extra turns, big mana spells, pretty cool. That was interesting. And then Kodama Ishai was in there, which was interesting. There was a Timna Kodama. There's like all kinds of stuff. Let's see what else. I don't remember. I'd have to look back and see exactly like what if there was some spicy stuff. I don't think I saw that too many spicy stuff things in my round other than the Jacob Hawken. There was Kruxai, and then there was Krux Sakashima. I played Ken, which was great. But then Rog what is the other Ikra card? It's Rayhan. Rog Rayhan.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was some spice.
Is that the like oops no lands
no.
deck?
It's just like Turbo Jund.
Oh, okay.
Turbo Jund. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they ended up resolving a Necro.
Okay, because I've seen a version of that deck that's like oops no lands, and it's like the Balustrade Spy thing.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Where you just get the Balustrade Spy or the other one like that.
Yeah.
And you just dump your whole library into your graveyard, and then you like dread return.
I've seen that more in 5-color lists.
Right. Okay.
I don't know. I mean, there's just not that many MDFCs. I don't know if that's enough for Jund, but maybe.
Yeah.
Hey, you know how many lands some of these RAL players are running? They're running like 18. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That's just, I think, sorry, RAL players, you're wrong. But anyways.
So here's a question for you, just in lieu of recent events, namely the unbannings today. Obviously, you're a known figure in the cEDH community, but I think you're also one of those players. There's lots of players that do well in tournaments pretty consistently and stuff. But you're one of those players where there's a pretty large subset of the cEDH community that follow your deck lists somewhat religiously on Moxfield. So I play a fair bit of Blue Farm. I don't really play Kinnan, but and I sort of so. Obviously, I check in to see what people are playing in the meta for Blue Farm, what's working, what's not. And, I'm like, okay, Evan's not really playing Blue Farm right now, so I'm not going to look at his list as much because I know that's not really where he's at, which, totally cool. You're playing Kinnan and doing quite well with it, so why would you change? So, the question being, to be a little more topical for today, given the obvious shot in the arm that Blue Farm has recently received from the printing of Voice of Victory and the unbanning of Gifts Ungiven, are you tempted to give Blue Farm a try in the serious competitive sphere, or are you confident staying with Kinnan, considering you obviously have had recent success with it?
I gotta be real. I think that the reason I've not played other decks for a little bit is because I've just been too busy to like get a bunch of games on them is like the main thing. I think Blue Farm has been arguably better than Kinnan for a while now. With where it's at. The answer is yes. I think Blue Farm's awesome. Blue Farm's really, really good. Kinnan's been really fun though. I've been having fun just like trying to like push that to its max. I mean, honestly, the way I like to play cEDH is I like to push a deck as far as I can, go as far as I can with it, and just like see where it ends up. And that's fun. It's optimization for me is a big part of like what I enjoy with the format. And I think that like that's been fun with Kinnan. And that was what I was doing with Blue Farm before. That's why I played it for so long. I'm like, all right, how can I optimize and make sure that I feel like in my mind my list is as correct as it can be, right? And so I'm not a big pet card enjoyer for the most part, right? I feel like I want to play cards that are just like, gonna be hey, it's better if they're fun, but I want them to win the game, right?
Sure.
And so I think I probably will be back on Blue Farm for a little bit, for sure. I need to do a big proxy order is one of the main things. I just haven't done that in a bit. I have a bunch, but new cards get printed and I have some copies, but I don't like to take apart my lists every week is I guess what I'm saying. So I'd rather have all of them at once, and I'm not buying 2 copies of every card or more. So Blue Farm is really, really good. I am curious to see if Gifts is actually as good as I think it is. I don't think it's broken. I don't think it's better than most of the things. I just think it's an include, right? Like, so voice is the one that's broken.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like it's for like a Blue Farm kind of list. I feel like Gifts Ungiven is like Voice of Victory in the sense where you're saying earlier, well, it's just another one. So now you have two intuitions in your deck, and two sort of like one card win the game, sort of.
True. But I would say the Creature Silences are in a whole nother tier than intuition type cards. Sure. So I think having another voice is going to be infinitely more impactful than having a Gifts Ungiven. Gifts Ungiven is just like, all right, well, now we have it's a little easier for us to win the game sometimes, but not all the time. I don't know. It's just, hey, who knows? Maybe we don't even want two of those effects. I don't know. It's not like I'm tutoring for intuition ever, like never. So it's just like, how often do I want to draw it? I mean, usually traditional knowledge should tell you that if it's good, you want more of them in your list. So probably going to be good, but we'll just have to see.
I will say, I think one big difference between Gifts and Intuition obviously is the mana cost. But, aside from the fact that it's one different, the difference is between 3 and 4 in cEDH is huge. More so than the difference between 1 and 2 or 2 and 3. The difference that climb to 4 mana is a big deal. Obviously, there's an ad nauseum consideration, which Blue Farm isn't casting ad naus that often these days, but you never know. But not as often as they used to anyway. But I think I guess what I'm getting to is that you almost have to end step Gifts. The likelihood of you being able to cast Gifts main phase and then do the thing right afterward, unless you have an inordinate amount of mana from a Smothering Tithe or something like that, I think is in not all games, but in a lot of games is low. And also making it back around to the end step of the person in front of you with 4 mana up to cast the Gifts without having to have expended some of that mana to interact at some point is also a little bit of a tough bargain. So, that's it. The card, I think, sits in a little bit of a precarious position for that reason, but obviously it will be good.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one thing that I would amend that statement is that Gifts is just like Intuition is a contextual card to the game state. The more cards that you have, the more cards in your graveyard, the better Gifts gets, right? Mm-hmm. And so if I don't have to tutor for half of my combo, the rest can be interaction pieces, right? Right. And so either they give me my combo in hand, and then now I can cast this interaction or whatever, or more cards in my graveyard. Now I just don't even need to grab the Brain Freeze because my graveyard's already full. Right. Or well, I mean, even if it's not already there, I can recast LED twice and tutor it again later if my graveyard's full. So point being that I think you're right in a lot of situations, but I think it'll still be like in a lot of games that are naturally progressing, this card will just be really, really good. Because now all of a sudden, all I need to grab is this, like, let's say I already have Savines at hand. I grab Breach and an LED. I grab Breach, Pact of Negation, Flusterstorm, and Silence. I don't know, whatever, right? That's pretty good. I'm going to win that game.
I'm going to get Ancient Tomb, LED, Savines Reclamation, and Breach. And now between the Ancient Tomb and the LED, you have 5 mana to flash back the Savines Reclamation. You make your land draw.
Yeah, absolutely.
Either way,
I think one of the really scary things is the fact that, because the Breach pile works with Intuition, it doesn't really need that 4th card that, while obviously with Gifts you could hypothetically grab all 4 pieces of the Breach thing, being Savines, Breach, LED, Brain Freeze.
Which sometimes will probably be correct.
Which sometimes would probably be correct, but most of the time you can grab the 3 pieces you would normally grab and protection for it, which is where it becomes really scary.
Your silence or
fully agree.
Even if it's just a land drop because you haven't been hitting your land drops or something, you just get a land.
In the past, I've gotten piles in games with Intuition that were I think back when Dockside was legal, I would be able to get what was it, Savines? I think maybe, I don't know, Savines Dockside and Breach or Savines Ranger Captain Breach, things like that. Mm-hmm. again, I know Dockside's not legal now, but like Savines being able to be cast again, or get 2 things on the first cast if it's from your graveyard, that's powerful. Is
absolutely. Yeah. I used to play pre-ban. Speaking of Dockside, I used to play Blues Clues. Was like my main
the
deck.
Dockside, the TNK Dockside combo deck. Yeah.
We had a whole separate Intuition pile very briefly after MH3, which was Savines, Dockside, and Thonian Nightmare. And then you party that way.
No, there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, I think we'll just have to see if that 4 mana kills it. I guess also one other thing I just want to slightly disagree with you on is that I think the more you go up in mana cost, if like you are evaluating these like combo pieces, I think the biggest difference is the lower mana cost. Like 1 and 2, I actually think is the biggest difference. I think that like the higher you go, it's going to be still super relevant. Every single mana is relevant in cEDH, very much so. But I think that like getting that extra card, I do think is going to be worth that mana a lot of the time. I'm pretty sure. But still, you know, if it's a 1 more mana to combo off, it still will. It'll make it so that you have less windows to do it. So I agree with you there, but I just think that 1 and 2 slot, like 1 mana, 2 mana, that's where it really like. I mean, my whole philosophy with like interaction is don't run any 2 mana interaction unless it's like a board wipe, right? Or like a big something like that, like an amphibian downpour toxic deluge type thing. That's different. But like other than that, all 1 mana interaction, because once you go up to 2, you can now cast like half as many of them on a turn cycle. So, but with this, if you're winning the game, as long as you have that, like hit that threshold, you're going to usually be okay. But we'll see, right?
Yeah, we'll totally see. Yeah, and I mean, I think the 1 mana, 2 mana thing, whether it's interaction or it's development pieces, obviously, like I mean, I think the ultimate case for that is like how strong a card like Rite of Flame is.
Yeah,
just that that card is immensely powerful.
But Heretic Ritual is never run. Right. Like.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
That tells you everything, right?
So. I mean, so I guess it'll be interesting times. I'm curious to see if there are any 4-card piles that are consistent and efficient enough to really make a big shift in the meta. With Gifts Ungiven now being unbanned, I think. Obviously, the most immediate effect will be its place in Blue Farm and just increasing the redundancy of the Intuition effect for Breach Pile, and also allowing you to get either all of the pieces at once or the same pieces you would usually get, and protection. You're
so right.
All sorts of good stuff.
But definitely,
and don't forget Ral. Ral is good. It's actually really good.
Up and comer. Yeah. But definitely not as big of a shakeup as the bans were on the opposite ends. I mean,
that was a monumental shift.
Yeah. This is, but
at the end of the day, Blue Farm is still number 1.
Yeah, it is.
Pre or post bans.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking the time to come on with us, Evan. It was a blast chatting with you. So
that was super fun for me too. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
We worked the kinks out. Thanks for hanging with that. So now I know for the future. Lock in those settings. But we'll have you back on for the next time in 2025, or I mean 2026 when they update the ban list. They said that they're not going to touch it for the rest of the year.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be a while.
2026. So
here's a question,
Scotty. I hope I see you before that.
Yeah, let's hope.
Here's a question for you to sign off. What changes would you hope to see on the next ban list update, unbanning or banning in 2026?
Great question. I mean, Scotty, you should answer too, but my immediate answer is ban Rhystic Study. That card is what's causing the meta to be slow and tough, and my decks abuse the crap out of it because that's like, I just think it's the best thing to be doing, but I want it gone. I think it's toxic. I think you could get rid of Bowmasters if you wanted to. That card kind of just like warps the heck out of games, but hey, it does hurt Kinnan a lot, which maybe is a good thing, right? Like, I don't know, but it helps Blue Farm. So, looking at the meta, I don't know, but regardless, it's like kind of an auto include. Both of those cards are, I think you could keep Fish. Not that Fish is like really that much less powerful than Rhystic, but it's just like less of them means you can't run a ton of clones based around them, right? If there's half as many.
Fish is just a more fair card. I think.
It'll still win games, but it's okay.
Yeah. I think on paper, Bowmasters is good because it punishes draws, but in the multiplayer format, it doesn't always really punish.
You punish the wrong player for someone else drawing cards. It's like
I mean, it does punish the draws, but not like whatchamacallit,
Whole breacher.
a Shieldred or something like that punishes draw.
Right. Yeah. Or no Shield Thief. But
yeah.
And I think the unbans that I want to see is like, I'd say Jewel Lotus should come back. I think that Primetime doesn't need to be on there at all. And honestly, even if that's the case, hey, why is Rafellos on there? Whatever. Who cares, right? I think if you get unbanned Primetime, again, just because that card is not that good, and it doesn't make any sense to me. Unban Primetime, unban Jeweled Lotus, and we're in, I think, a pretty good spot. Jeweled Lotus just allows for a lot more decks to be viable, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like Mana Crypt, I like Mana Crypt a lot. Does it need to be unbanned? No. I would be stoked, but I don't think you need to unban it. They've talked about in this, like if you read through, they said Jeweled Lotus is like the next card that they were talking about, like the one that they were thinking about. So I think that's great. And then they kind of talked about that with Primetime as well. But like, there's a lot of cards that could just stay on there. And I think if you ban Ristic Study and unban JLo, even just that, we're going to have a way better format, in my opinion. So that's me.
I'd hate to see Ristic Study go, but I see it. I see what you're saying. I think it's a card.
Scott, what are your thoughts on ban list update 26? What would you like to see?
I think definitely JLo should come off. I think it's a card that's
how else are you gonna cast Tivit?
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, I think it allows player to play in the casual format. It allows players to play those bigger mana commanders and kind of stand a chance.
Yeah.
And I think like the great thing is that like most commanders that are like 3 or 4 mana aren't that powerful. Like you get like, oh cool, I get like turn 1.
Yes, this is stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but even like turn 1 Sisay, like that does nothing for you, right? Like it's cool to have the mana to like, if it gets killed, you can play the commander tax and stuff like that. But I think, I suggested that it should either be errated or they should make a new one that is like those cards, the Jace and the one Angel, where it's like you can't play it on your first or second turn. So it's so JLo exactly as written, but you can't play this card on your first or second turn. So then it alleviates that, like...
Because then you could still ramp perfectly into Tivit. No, I get it, Scotty. I'm with you.
But yeah, all these...
I'm just kidding.
There's lots of great, 5, 6, 7 mana commanders that even outside of the cEDH realm and the casual realm that I feel like, hey, I want to play this big chonker of a commander, and I have my Jeweled Lotus for that. I mean, I only play Jeweled Lotus in... like cEDH type decks, just because it's one of those cards for me that feels like a cEDH card. Like I would never put Drannith Magistrate in a casual deck. Just I'm not going to do that. Like I'm not.
Are you saying that's one of those cards that changes the game, Scotty?
Yeah, I feel like it does, and that's a card.
If only there were a system for that.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that being banned because of the casual implications of the card. I think in cEDH, I think it's a good card, and I think that's the sort of the push and pull of things where I feel like certain cards are good within the cEDH meta and aren't good in the casual meta. Like I think Braids is great for cEDH. Have fun if you want to try to jam that into a deck or make that your commander. I think that's great, but I think in the casuals, it's a whole lot less fun, and I feel that way about stuff like Drannith Magistrate, like a lot of the Staxy kind of stuff. But I mean, if you want to play a Staxy deck, I mean, you're just gonna get punched in the face by the whole table in a casual format. True. Where in cEDH, people are just gonna find ways to play around it. Like I took Drannith out of Tivit, and it's not in this current Marnius list just because even though it is a really good card, there's like it's stacks is so hard now because like to me, I felt Drannith created bad play patterns for me where I'd be like, oh cool, I've got Drannith in my opening hand. I can do land Chromox Drannith. That's going to slow everybody down and give me time to get my game plan together. And sometimes that just doesn't work either.
Well, you know what they do? They cast a Ristic Study.
Yeah.
And they don't care.
Right.
At all.
Yeah. And
that's the issue.
Yeah. Then eventually Drannith gets removed and they've got,
because they have all the cards they want.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think something that's like interesting talking about JLo specifically, and like it's one of the big effects, obviously, on casual or cEDH is making high CMC commanders viable. Is while that's obviously true, we're just talking about Tim and then now Scotty having so much success with Marnius Calgar, and obviously Marnius Calgar is not the cheapest commander in the world to cast, but he's had a lot of success in a Sans JLo meta, and I think the reason that is because Marnius is a powerful commander. Not saying that he isn't in any way, but he's not a remove on site commander. If he resolves, he's probably sticking around.
Right. And he's not casting it most of the time until he's got his other engine online.
Yeah,
right.
It's just Sans commander until you have the combo.
Right. So then, I guess something that's interesting then, in just the discussion surrounding Jeweled Lotus is that okay, is Jeweled Lotus really making these high CMC commanders more viable, or is it more like the reason they're not viable is because they're splashy and then players are casting them when they're not ready to go, right. And then if they get removed, then they're already high CMC plus commander tax makes them pretty much
and they built around it.
Yeah, right. and that's Tivit, because Tivit's one of those commanders where it's not a turbo deck in the more conventional sense of what you consider a turbo deck, but I always kind of looking how fast can I get Tivit out, because he pressures the other players and he's a value engine, right? I'm getting treasures and I'm getting clues. I'm mana and I'm drawing cards, exactly what you want to be doing in a game of Magic, especially a high-powered game. You want to make as much mana and draw as many cards, and Tivit helps you do that while also pressuring the other opponent's life totals. If there's somebody, playing Adnos, cool, I'm knocking you down by 6 points every turn, and that's not nothing when people are playing fetch lands and Ancient Tomb and things like that. That adds up really fast, where people are like, okay, you can stop attacking me. I'm not going to cast Adnos even if I draw it because I'm at 19 life or something like that, And so, that's where, Jewel Lotus was big for that deck, because I wanted to get Tivit out right away. Even if I don't have time save, I don't care, because I just want to smash you in the face and make treasures and make clues and then, get some sort of, get some sort of benefit off of that kind of thing. Where Marnius is a little bit different, where you have to have some other engine online for him to draw your cards or get some sort of value. You're not oh cool, I got to 5 mana, I cast Marnius and now I'm inevitably going to win this game. Or I felt like Tivit is you pay 6 mana, you're inevitably going to win the game, because you're going to draw into time save or you're going to draw into a tutor, and then it's just AB combo kind of thing.
Right.
And Tivit had this kill on sight, he's that sort of splashy kill on sight commander, but thankfully he's got the ward, which makes it a little bit more difficult to kill him on sight. So
the fact that he protects himself is
Mistrise Village into Pongify is really good against Tivit.
Hey, there you go. Hey,
there you go.
I do have to jump in because I do have to run for another thing, but I really appreciate you guys.
Thanks for coming on.
And we let me know where you end up with Marnius, because I think that deck is gonna. I mean, that deck is sweet. Again, like I told you, it was my first real cEDH deck that I played in tournaments. And I want to get back to it. That's part of the proxy order that is planned. So I'll be playing it with you.
I've got a tournament on Sunday, so we'll see how it goes.
Oh, sick! Yeah, let me know how it goes. That's awesome.
Will do, man. Thanks a lot, man.
Right on.
Take care.
All right. Well, you guys have a good night. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Cheers.
Adios.
We can.
And then there were two.
Yeah, and then
it's
just me and you. I think I still love the deck, but like I said, I feel like there's problems with it having a hard time winning on the stacks, and winning and dealing with the sort of instant speed world that we're in of Born Upon a Winds and things like that. Where looking at the win lines are Tivit, backup Thoracle, and then Displacer Kitten to Fury. Can't win on the stack with Displacer Kitten to Fury because speed,
something that's really interesting. Just speaking of that deck, obviously, as you're well aware, I've been grinding Hashaton a fair bit. Something that I think is where I'm at with Hashaton, but I think this also can apply to Tivit, is in Esper, you kind of get it in your head that, man, other than Thoracle, I'm, short on win cons. You know, I'm short on ways to close the game, and part of the reason that Tivit is so good is that Tivit solves that problem by having an A plus B combo from the zone, which is great. Something that I've and you know, just full disclosure for our audience, Scotty knows that these are my thoughts on Hashaton, but just so all of you guys know, you know, I'm grinding Hashaton. I don't know if I think that Hashaton is really capable of being a top tier cEDH deck or not. Certainly, when I go back to playing Blue Farm, it feels much smoother and easier to play and is easier to win the game. However, one, that's not really a fair comparison. Blue Farm's been the number one deck for years and has had many talented brewers, Evan included, put a lot of work into that deck. And Hashaton is not a deck that has the immediate obvious appeal of, you know, just probably the best color pie available to you, and multiple commanders that create card advantage, and all of that. So I you know, I'm aware that that's not an apples to apples comparison. But what I was getting at is that Hashaton started to feel a lot better when I started taking win lines out of it. And right now, the only win lines I'm on are Thoracle and Hullbreaker Horror. And then if you can consider it a win line, then Mnemonic Betrayal as sort of backup. But I took, you know, for those of you who are more familiar with the Hashaton lines, I took the Shroom stuff out. I did also take, speaking of Tivit, I took the Tivit Time Sieve and the 99 out. And, you know, it's felt a lot better since doing that, and I kind of wonder if the same philosophy might be applied to Tivit, just because if you look at Blue Farm, for example, you know, Blue Farm really only has like two ways to win the game. It's either Breach stuff or Thoracle, and that's it. So it's like, you know, if you have Tivit Time Sieve and you have Thoracle, it's like, do you really need these other ways to win the game in the list? Because Esper's real strength is Esper good stuff, and the reason that it's powerful is because in Esper there is so much good stuff, and the more win lines you include, the less good stuff you have, because those win lines are usually pieces that work really well together but are less powerful separately. Obviously, Tivit is very different from Hashaton in regards to a card like Displacer Kitten. You know, Displacer Kitten is incredibly powerful with Tivit, because then you can start linking Tivit and get a ton of value, and there's a lot of overlapping synergy there that does not exist in Hashaton. You know,
and that's why those cards are in there, is because Tivit with Kitten is just a good card in that deck. And,
absolutely.
Teferi Time Raveler, just a good card in the deck. Like it's a silence effect, it's a bounce in stapled together in one card, and it just happens to combo with Tivit. But by itself, it's like, oh cool, yeah, I can play a silence effect, and then I can bounce a problematic card if I need to. And Kitten just, like you said, like I can flicker Tivit, or I can flicker a Mana Vault or a One Ring or something like that, and get value by casting. It is an expensive card, and it's a magnet for removal, and it's one of those cards that like everybody's ears perk up and they're like, oh shit, we got to deal with the Displacer Kitten. Like literally, even if there's like nothing else on the board, if I have like only a Mana Vault on the board, they're like, oh my god, we still need to deal with the Displacer Kitten because he's got a Mana Vault and he's going to flicker that Mana Vault, you know.
Right. Hypothetically, not that you would, but if you went like land Lotus Petal Mana Vault Kitten on turn one, everyone would still be like, "Oh shit, there's a Displacer Kitten."
And I've had games where I do something like that, where I know, like, okay, because I know I'll be able to flicker the Mana Vault, that I can cast an Arcane Signet, and then I can keep doing that, and that gives me extra mana, and then eventually if I get out like the One Ring, or then once Tivit is out, or if I have Urza, I can flicker Urza with it, and I get more constructs, and that's more good stuff. And I think so that's like I don't run Hullbreaker anymore in the Tivit list, because that was one of those ones where I felt like that's too much trying to jam jam too many win cons in the deck. It really was in there because I had it in there for like tournaments because of time, because you can't win with time save if you go to time. So it's like, okay, well, this is a backup win con that I can use if the game goes to time. But I felt like too often I got blown out by that, where I would cast a Hullbreaker Horror and somebody, and I invested fully into, now I'm going down this win line with the Hullbreaker Horror, and somebody, casts the Swords to Plowshares on it, and I can't bounce the Swords to Plowshares enough to save the Hullbreaker, or somebody's able to stop me, and then they play a clone, and they clone the Hullbreaker Horror, and now they've got it, now they win. It's one of those like cards where it's a really great win line, but it's also a very, very dangerous card to play, or just easy to kind of get blown out, because you're sinking, even though it's uncounterable flash speed, you're still sinking 7 mana into something that.
Sure. And I think also something, we're just talking about instant speed wins versus sorcery speed wins and stuff with Evan before he had to hop off, is while Hullbreaker itself is instant speed, the thing that you do with it, unless you have a Born Upon a Wind or a Valley Floodcaller, is not instant speed. You can't bounce your artifacts up and down to make infinite mana, or bounce a Bowmaster up and down. Bowmaster has flash, but to get the mana to be able to do that, does not. So I also think that it's kind of deceptive of like, people are like, oh, this could be this instant speed thing, and it's like, well, sure, the Hullbreaker has flash, but like the rest of what you're going to do, unless you have another card to give it flash, does not.
That's why that Valley Floodcaller combo with like the Retraction Helix and stuff like that is so good, because
absolutely,
because you can do that. The only problem with that is you have to have the Valley Floodcaller out a turn so that it doesn't have summoning sickness, because you can't just flash out it and then flash out the Attraction Helix on it, because it's giving it a tap ability. That's the big downfall of that combo.
Yeah, I mean, if there was an instant that said like, in I don't even know if it would be an instant, or I guess an enchantment that has flash that said something like, tap an untapped creature you control and then return target non-land permanent, and then like it sacked itself at the end of turn or something like that. You get what I'm saying. And it's something that, got around, that had sort of a Springleaf Drum adjacent effect that allowed you to do it and not worry about the summoning sickness. Then, I think, obviously still, without any of that, the Floodcaller, Retraction Helix, or Banishing Knack stuff is very strong, and a lot of decks are having success with it. But, if there was some sort of a version of that got around the summoning sickness, that would be, incredibly strong.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think Tim's list, I was looking at his Marnius list, he's really going in on Hullbreaker Horror and Valley Floodcaller lines as like his main win con, and because the thing that Marnius has, I guess, Tivit has it to a certain degree, but it's different. Like, Marnius has just a literal, if you have infinite mana, you can sink that infinite mana into Marnius and draw your deck.
Right.
Tivit,
he's not.
Yeah. Tivit with infinite mana alone, you can't draw your deck. But if you have like a Hullbreaker out and you're flickering things, you're bouncing things to make your infinite mana, and then you can cast Tivit, then you can just bounce Tivit infinite times and recast him. And
Tivit is an HPH outlet.
Yeah. So you have to have that. You can't just have infinite mana. It's some other way. You have to be able to bounce it and play it with, like the Valley Floodcaller. You can't bounce. You can't use that to bounce Tivit. I guess you could, but then you replay it, and you'd have to have another thing to untap. You'd have to have
another spell to trigger the untap thing. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
So you're kind of reliant on something else where you don't have to have that if you're playing Marnius. You can just bounce your rocks and get your infinite mana, and then just dump it straight into Marnius and make tokens and draw cards. But
I think the real comparison between Marnius and Tivit, since obviously they're very similar decks, is Marnius is a value engine and an infinite mana outlet, versus Tivit is a value engine and a combo piece.
Yeah.
And there are other there are other differences between the two cards, obviously,
Yeah,
but like, on a real basic level.
Yeah. 6/6 flying Ward 3 is huge, and you don't
Yes.
have to have like he's the value engine in and of himself. Where Marnius isn't really a value engine in and of himself. You have to have someone
Right.
making tokens. If you're not making tokens in some way, he's kind of like I used to say like a value multiplier, because what you want to, because you're like, oh, like Smothering Tithe is your ideal card to have out, something like that. So every time you make a treasure, you draw a card, which is like awesome.
Right.
So that's
Insane.
You're like your value multiplier. Where Tivit is he's just making the value by himself. You're getting what you're getting every turn, and it's that. But yeah,
Which is interesting. Yeah, which is also interesting because Kinnan is kind of the same description. Kinnan is not any additional value by himself, but if you have other non-land sources that make mana, then all of a sudden Kinnan makes a lot of value.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's one of those things where he's like a value multiplier, infinite mana outlet / win condition,
Right.
combo piece. Because that
Right.
mana, because that value multiplier is also combo piece in the
Right,
like,
with Basalt Monolith.
Yeah. Which doesn't win you the game outright, like more or less Time Civ with Tivit wins you the game outright. Like, obviously there's other factors, if somebody has a flying blocker, or if somebody's under the One Ring protection, stuff like that.
Sure.
There's always variables there, but more or less you get out the Time Civ with the Tivit, and you've got the game. But yeah, lots of different variants on that. And I'm gonna give the Marnius a try on the tournament on Sunday, and we'll see how it does. I have probably less than a dozen games with the deck, so we'll see how that does.
And for our viewers, what is the tournament you're playing in on Sunday?
The tournament is what do we name this thing? It's the Wizards of the Busters. It's a Dave and Buster's in Hollywood. We got 32 people on. Is that the number that we're capped out at?
32 people. So for this is an event that our friend Jose and our very own Wayne J. Liu have helped put together, and I've helped with as well. And Ben, who's a level 3 judge and great Magic player himself. He have put together, and so this is sort of the almost test run, this event, but we sold it out. It's going to be a top deck silver event, so there's top deck points on the line. Right now, winner gets a Lord of the Rings set booster box, and top 4 also gets cash prizing, and we're discussing adding some additional prize support. But more importantly, because this one's already sold out, so why promote an event that's already sold out, is that we're going to be doing another one of these next month in May at some point, date TBD. So get excited and look for some more tournaments put together in partnership with the Amped Gaming team, because it's very exciting stuff, and we're excited to be helping out with events to build the community, and give the existing community something that's fun in an environment that's not an LGS or an event hall at Dave & Buster's. And so obviously the competition will be full on serious cEDH competition, but after the event's over, you can hang out with people and grab a beer and order some pizza, do whatever you're going to do. And it doesn't have to be, it can be a social event that doesn't have to 100% revolve around only talking about Magic the entire time. You can go play air hockey and have a good time, and you can discuss how the gifts ungiven and unbanning affects the air hockey meta.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We'll see how that goes. So,
exciting stuff.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on, Curtis. I think we're about ready to wrap this thing up here.
Yeah.
Thanks for everybody who's listening. We're gonna save this, and it'll be up for future viewing pleasure. And we'll see how how our takes stood up to the test of time here with the unbannings. If see if mono black braids takes over the format.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a new regime now.
Yeah, right. Anything is possible. Well, good to see you, Curtis. And
Great to see you, and thanks for putting this stream together and getting Evan
yeah,
on and all that stuff.
yeah.
Evan's,
Yeah, I
a
think
big
we're gonna
deal
do
in the
more.
community.
Yeah, now that I've ironed out some of the kinks, we'll try to do more stream stuff because it really is easy to set up. It's just a matter of getting people together. So.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about doing some streaming of live games, which would be fun in the future for sure.
Which we can definitely do.
So cool, good
All right.
stuff.
See you later, homie.
All right, Captain. Cheers.